Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of CookieCast. Today on CookieCast, new podcast. That's right, new podcast. Brand new, brand spanker, never been done before. You might recognise the faces or even the voices, but it's a new podcast, new subject. And the subject, you might have guessed from the title, it's all about the beer, baby. It's all about the beer. That's right, we're doing a new podcast, and it's a beer-based one. Craft beer. That is the name of the game. So yeah, join us as we discuss craft beer. Yeah, if you're watching us on YouTube, do subscribe. It's a big help to the channel. So, we know you like to help out. You can also subscribe on audio platforms, SoundCloud, iTunes, wherever you get your podcasts. So here we go. This is brand new podcast, the CookieCast, the Pursuit of Hoppiness. It's looking promising.
I'll record at the top of mine.
Okay.
Alright
then. So normally we've got to get the joke out. So normally at this point in time I'd be like, Stuart, it's over to you. But I'm going to spice things up today. Matthew, it's over to you, sir.
Alright, well, good evening and welcome to the CookieCast monthly beer podcast, the Pursuit of Hoppiness, with Mr. Stuart Woodmansey, the Paul Williams, and the head honcho guru, general kind of boss, Mr. Andy Cook. Welcome, gents.
Welcome to
Cheers.
you. Cheers.
Cheers. Good evening.
Skull.
Cheers. Right, so I'll kind of do a little introduction of what we're going to do. So it's going to be a monthly podcast talking about kind of different kind of craft beers, focusing on different breweries, and kind of having a general chat about beer. And there's not many other things apart from wrestling and football and American football and computer games that we hope that other people want to talk about. So. We'll kind of crack on and kind of go through kind of what we're going to do. So the first thing that we kind of thought we'd talk about, gents, is the best beer that you've drank this month. All right, so I've kind of taken it like past 4 weeks, kind of thing. So, kind of anybody want to lead us off with their best beer that they've drank this month?
I purposely have kept a can, which I don't normally do, normally straight in the recycling, but I could not throw this particular can away, which might give a couple of you on here a clue as to what it is. Within the last 4 weeks, my favourite beer, it's not necessarily readily available though anymore, seeing as the stash rules as were, but was housed in this particular vessel for the YouTube viewers, which is a spray painted can, hand spray painted by a Leeds-based graffiti artist called Insa, which, for any fans of craft beer out there, will lead you on to Northern Monk's Patreon series and a series of different beers that they did in conjunction with Insa, where he did all of the artwork for it. That one in particular was a triple IPA, bringing in a very high 10%. But for me, it didn't drink that way at all. It was just a really, really smooth drink, and as much as it was a good beer, it was kind of like the novelty factor as well, because to get hold of that beer, there was 6 others in the series where you had to like keep the labels from, and it makes one big piece of artwork, and then you had to take a picture of it and send it to Northern Monk with you in it to show that you'd kind of accumulated that. So there was kind of a bit of a novelty factor, I guess, with that bit as well. but it was weird. It was a beer that I've waited a very long time for, because those beers came out in across 2019 into late. It might have been late 2019 when they actually finished. And their intention was to then obviously brew the special one pretty soon after, and then obviously the whole world went to absolute crap. And it was like, is it going to happen? Not sure if it's going to happen. And then finally they managed to get it sorted, presumably over the back end of summer last year, before everything got shut down again. Got the stuff into the tanks, and we finally got hold of it. Again, for the people on the YouTubes, there is a little card that we've got with that's the full design that was sprayed with all of the cans. So my can somewhere around there somewhere. But yeah, so that was my favourite beer, mainly because it was a big hitter, bit of speciality to it, but it also tasted pretty damn good.
Yeah, I'd second that. Kind of, it's not within the month range, so I can't kind of put in, because I'd kind of spoilt it and drank it before. But yeah, it was that top quality triple IPA. We'll go to our guru of low alcohol beers, Mr. Andy Cook.
So, around Christmas time and beyond, I'd stocked the fridge with the aforementioned low alcohol or alcohol free beers, and thanks to Paul doing a lovely order from Tiny Rebel, they were doing a really good selection of non-alcoholic or low alcoholic beers, and some, all good fun, but of the 4 non-alcoholic ones that came, one of them stands out as not only the best that I've drunk recently, it's absolutely one of the best, full stop, and it's this guy. I don't know if I can.
Yeah.
I've been naughty and I haven't brought one up with me, because I've only got one left and I can't bear to part with it. So this is the Tiny Rebel Space Cake, which, I mean, let's face it, name alone. It is non-alcoholic. It's a non-alcoholic oat milk mocha stout. Now then, as these gentlemen here will attest to, I've said it before and I'll say it again, the non-alcoholic stout is more often than not quite rough going. I think we're all aware that the stout doesn't quite lend itself to a non-alcoholic nature, and I've had some nice ones, but more often than not, if I'm like, oh, I'm not sure about that, it's often a stout. But like I said, that is just it's just these different layers of yumminess. It is absolutely delightful. All 4 of the non-alcoholic that Tiny Rebel did or are still doing, I think, were fantastic. Currently tucking into this guy, the tropical IPA, delightful. But yeah, that space cake is just, it's the good stuff. So yeah, I have had it in the last month, which is why I've only got one left in the fridge.
I mean that's clever, because I think that was always the kind of like kind of criticism of like a low alcohol beer or something like that it was just kind of, what's the point, and like in the past my father-in-law had said to me, try this low alcohol, and I'm like, thanks, I'm alright, I'll just have a can of Coke, it's kind of, or a cup of tea, that type of thing. So yeah, it's good that they've kind of managed to get that. And like you said, I think a stout is particularly difficult to brew. without the alcohol, because that's kind of part of the thing. But to get that taste is excellent. Right, Mr. Williams.
So there was a couple I had on my list for this, but I have just dug around in the fridge. Actually, I found one that I'd already had this month, but I think you and Stu will both be able to appreciate it. I've dove back in on an old favourite from North Brewing, which, if you can't see the make out of the thing, is the Full Fathom 5. Coffee coconut porter.
That almost accompanied me onto the podcast. I have one of them in the fridge downstairs.
Yeah. So the strange thing about that particular beer is that I believe that when it was brewed the first time, I wasn't a huge fan of it. And I don't know if it's just because at the time I'd not drunk a lot of porters, or the particular one I had that day just, I don't know, wasn't like the freshest out of the keg or whatever. But the one I had earlier this month was incredible. Like the balance on the coconut and the coffee and stuff like that was just really, really good. So good, so good in fact that I actually shared it with a professed non-beer drinker. So, and she enjoyed it.
So you had to buy another one to make up for the loss.
Exactly. Well, I didn't get a full can's worth, did I? So I had to dive back into the supply and sort myself out with a full can.
It's when you end up sharing that one as well. That's the.
I'll probably end up sharing that one, but I mean, in case in point, obviously the current beer that I'm supping at the moment is is a tiny rebel offering as well as some of you may be aware, but it's the tropical fruit and bubblegum wheat double IPA. Just before we started recording, took it into the room to let the non-beer drinker have a little taste, and she said it was one of the best beers she's ever tasted. So.
Oh, magnificent! There you go, ringing endorsement.
Bubblegum.
Right. Well, my beer of the month is again, it's not going to be a surprise for probably Stuart and Paul. Is a Wylam beer. Surprise, surprise. And it's definitely not available because I drank it right on the kind of edge of the best before date, because I had two. I drank one right at the time, saved one right at the thing. It was called I'm Not Mary, which was an Imperial IPA, which came in at 10.6%. The can's gone because people in this house are far too quick at tidying things. Well, that was the kind of the can label, and it was that kind of, and it's the kind of thing that I like about IPAs, and particularly Wylam IPAs, is it's got that kind of thick, kind of juicy flavour to it, but with that kind of like slight burn of the hops at the end of it, which just kind of keeps you kind of on your toes a little bit, and kind of. But it's one of them beers where you just kind of get to the end of the glass, and I was like, that's gone down way too quick, and there's every chance that I'm going to stand up in a minute, and even though I've only had like 2 beers, it's going to be a difficult stand up. Yeah, difficult getting up in a different kind of way than people might say. So it was just one of those like a really drinkable IPA, and I think that's kind of, as we kind of start to look through kind of different breweries and stuff like that, I think that's the biggest change, that that some IPAs are just really kind of just knocked back, and you kind of think, oh man, I can't believe I've not got another one of those in the fridge kind of thing. And I mean, maybe I do, but we can discuss the fridge later on. Right, and any other kind of like little mentions of any beers, like just kind of ones that perhaps just missed out, or mention the bubblegum wheat one, or are we all set to kind of move on to the kind of main event?
I've got one that I want to discuss, but I don't know where to slot it in. And it's a really weird thing to to talk about. So if there's a here's a point in time to talk about weird beers section, then then
we can go with. I was going to have any other business or.
Right. Well, I'll save it for any other business. But yeah, I've got a super weird one. Like real weird.
Definitely up my street. Weirder the better. That's great.
Really
All
weird.
right. So what we're going to do each month is we're going to kind of have our kind of brewery of the month, and what we're going to do is kind of a bit more of a deep dive on a specific brewery that either we visited or we particularly enjoy, and kind of the irony is, as we've kind of gone round our beers of the month, is that from Andy's beer and kind of one that Paul showed you there. Our beer of the month, our brewery of the month is Tiny Rebel Brewery from Newport in Wales. Now the brew kind of doing a little bit of reading on Tiny Rebel. They started kind of 9 years ago, so that's kind of the main reason for our focus, because it is their coming up to their 9th birthday. They've recently released their 9th birthday beers, and so we just thought we'd celebrate the kind of the kind of craft beer behemoth that is Tiny Rebel. So like, yeah, like I said, they started in 2012. It's a kind of brother-in-laws. They started it in one of their father's garage, and I've kind of just built from there. I think it was 2016, 2017. They moved into their new brewery. 2.5, 2.6 million investment in the brewery, and if you get the opportunity to visit, it's well worth the visit. It's quite a spectacular looking kind of build. Kind of it's out on the outside looks fantastic with the kind of the canisters outside, which is all kind of labelled up with different beers, and then you go inside and it's a tap room with a massive kind of glass windows that let you kind of watch the brewing process. Me and Stu had the kind of pleasure of going last August for an afternoon, and it's just it's a really kind of spectacular brewery to kind of look at. They've also kind of I think they kind of followed the model, kind of not quite the Brewdog model, but they're kind of on that kind of way of they've got a tap room in Cardiff, a tap room in Newport as well that kind of serves the beer, serves food and that kind of thing, and it's just kind of they kind of seem to do things kind of in a well calculated way, in a kind of in a kind of interesting way. I think that's the most interesting. The thing that I would say was the most interesting thing about them. A lot of their beers have won British Beer Awards, which the Red Ale was like the best beer in Britain, I think, in 2016. And they kind of had the one year, I think they had gold, silver, and bronze in Wales. I think it's that kind of they're kind of one of the breweries that kind of step on the toes of the camera kind of dictatorship that's gone on for so many years beforehand.
A bit of a strange one that for me with the Kutch, that Red Ale, because it's not one. Instantly, if I was going to go for a beer, I wouldn't pick a Red Ale as such, because it's quite a different taste. It's got that kind of like maltiness away from like your standard IPA, and it's almost like their version of like a bitter, I suppose, to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember the first time I had that was in Trembling Madness in the upstairs bar, I think, because I've been looking for it for a while, and it was when I was out with you guys. And I remember it being towards the end of the night, and not necessarily having. I wouldn't be able to give you the full flavour breakdown right now, as that's what I'm saying from that particular beverage. I don't remember being blown away by it, and then I've had it since, and it's definitely like one that's kind of like grown on me over time, and it's nice that it's something that's so different to the other beers that they do, and they've like banged it into the core range. So I think that is decent.
Yeah. It's one of those kind of really easy drinkable kind of beers. If you're trying to introduce someone into drinking kind of craft ale or real ale, it would probably be a kind of good way to start, because it's not crazy hoppy, but it's not kind of completely lacking in flavour. You mentioned there the core range, so I had a look at the core range kind of thing, and I didn't want to do them a disservice, because I think when you go on their website, there's just loads of beers that are just available all year round. So to call it a core range, I think kind of, I went in there kind of going, oh, well, I think it must be kind of quick Club Tropica, because you can't say the NA anymore.
No, because that means live drinks are free, surely.
Dutty, the Club Tropica, the kind of tropical IPA. The Dutty, the Vermont style IPA. This Cali Pale. And then you just kind of keep on going. I was like, right, Cali Pale, well, yeah, that one's it. Then I forgot about Fubar, the raspberry sour they produce all the time. Then you're like looking at he's gone. So I was going to say his favourite one, but like $5 shake still on the website, and I thought that was a kind of thing. So I think they seem to have moved away from having a core range, as it were, and just have, right, these are beers that we're going to produce all year round. You can access them all year round, and I quite like that kind of element of it, because it's nothing worse than kind of thinking, I really like that beer, I've got to wait till kind of November for them to do it again, or I really like that beer, I think I've got to wait till March for them to do it again.
A part of that, though, as well, has come from the growth, because obviously they are in that position where they're in every supermarket pretty much, or they are in a supermarket in every town across the country now. With I think Sainsbury's is they're probably their main distributor. So I guess they kind of have to then at least have them that you can get all year round. And obviously you've already mentioned Club Tropica. If you want in like one of the tropical IPAs, for that to be available all year round, and for the fact it is absolutely dirt cheap, really, in comparison, like, why wouldn't you? Like, that, it's the Club Tropica. It said, I've seen on their site, was the UK's number one. Sorry, NFL fans, you're going to love this very specific stat. But it's the UK's number one tropical IPA. On days that end in Y, when the wind blows in a westerly fashion. But like, the fact that they've gone to such trouble to get that out on their site as a stat, I think kind of almost to me that would switch me off. Please don't let it. That is such a nice beer, and it's middle of the range at 5.5%. Or what I would class as middle of the range. I know everybody's different on the old scales there, but it's just such a nice aftertaste to it. Like, you don't get that kind of like bitterness at the back end of it either. It says tropical IPA on the tin. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, and so kind of just as you kind of went off there, Paul, we're kind of talking about like they don't seem to have a core range. They just seem to have loads of beers. So I thought I'd give you a brief second to talk about Pump Up the Jam.
It's certainly I've not yet found a beer that's better than it from a taste perspective. The best thing that I've seen with it as well is it's one of the few beers that's good both through the cask hand pull and off the keg taps. So it's good when kept like super chill, and it's just nice when it's taken straight from the cask. So, but it's just a really, it's one of those ones where if you were to just basically eat the item that it's supposed to be portraying, you wouldn't be dissatisfied with what you were getting given, sort of thing. It's the closest I've ever had to a beer being the actual item it's supposed to taste like.
Yeah.
For me, anyway.
I think that was the big thing when I first had it, because I'd had a couple of other beers that were on this donut flavoured IPA or donut jam, or this kind of, it was one of those early ones where it was like, oh, just chuck shit in the brew and see if it works, kind of thing, and invariably you'd buy it and be like, it just tastes like beer, thanks. There's no like aftertaste or no during taste of that kind of thing. And I was like, when we all first got that pump up the jam, I was like, oh man, it's just going to be another terrible donut jam IPA that's not going to taste of any of the things that it says on there apart from an IPA. And I was like, oh no, okay, no, there's definitely a jam flavour to it. There's definitely that kind of baked kind of goods to it, flavour to it, and then there is also the IPA taste to it, which is really kind of nice. The other kind of thing that I definitely kind of mentioned, I was ummed and ahed about it, but kind of OG normal style Stay Puffed. And I'm glad that's kind of become kind of the core range, that they kind of do that over and over again. We'll go on to talk about the fact that they do weird stuff with the Stay Puffed, and that's kind of one of the experimental beers that they produce, with putting different things in, but proper, OG kind of Stay Puffed, even amplified Stay Puffed as well, which is lovely. It's just an absolutely fantastic beer, and it's that kind of similar kind of thing of, right, it says marshmallow porter. Yeah, fine. Yeah, I 100% agree with that. Thank you very much. I'll drink that. Kind of, if someone said to me, right, you've got to drink a stout or a porter for the rest of your life, yeah, give me a crate of them, and that'll be that. I'll drink that. I think the other kind of reason why I thought Tiny Rebel was a good one to talk about is that they seem to be the first kind of brewery that have really embraced the kind of low alcohol. And again, I think it's that attention to detail. And I'll let you, Andy, talk about. Obviously, you've spoken about this Space Cake Stout one, but obviously you've said it. You've tried a few of them now, and they kind of got a nice flavour to them.
Yeah, so I was particularly pleased, while simultaneously being a little bit disappointed, which was weird. I was pleased we were doing Tiny Rebel, because Tiny Rebel are a firm favourite for a multitude of reasons at the moment. Mostly because, as Paul will be able to tell you, when you go to the various different breweries to get the various different, can I get a non-alcoholic beer from this person or these people? Often it's no, or sometimes it's yes, but it's this one. And as I was saying before, if you end up with a stout, that brewery makes a stout, there's a high chance it's not going to be amazing. So you confined to this, they do a beer, is it any good, sort of thing. Tiny Rebel, like you say, have absolutely embraced it at this point in time. They seem to still be embracing it. There has been sort of little changes to their range on the website, but it does still seem to be readily available. Just you have to maybe order it in a different way. Again, like you were saying, with Sainsbury's selling Tiny Rebel, they do sell a box of the non-alcoholic Tiny Rebels, and I'm all about companies that go the extra distance. I'm aware from a non-alcoholic perspective that it's more expensive, it's harder, it's more difficult to actually achieve. There are extra steps and extra parts to the process, and that's why a lot of places don't bother. So for a company, a brewery, to not only go, yeah, we're going to do it, but yeah, we're going to do it to X scale, I'm immediately like, yeah, you can be my best friends. Then the fact that there are these 4 beers, and they are. I was very much in your court. It's like, yeah, I could drink a non-alcoholic beer, or I could have a lovely glass of water, or maybe push the boat out and have an orange juice, because essentially, it was very much the same sort of thing. It's like, why? I could just drink something else. Going out, I go out with a big group of beer drinkers. It's like, well, I'll have some lemonade or something. But this difference with certainly these beers being the fact that they taste so good, and they're all different. They all taste different, and they all taste really nice. It's just nice touch on top of nice touch on top of nice touch. So I'm big on the Tiny Rebel at the moment.
I think that's the thing. I think we'll come to it again and again. And it sounds like a bit of a arse-kissing kind of exercise, but it is the attention to detail to get it right. And we've all kind of talked about the beers, and they taste, tropical IPA tastes like a tropical IPA, donut IPA tastes like a donut and jam IPA, marshmallow stout tastes like a marshmallow stout. It'd be interesting to try the non-alcoholic Club Tropica against the Club Tropica, which is alcoholic, and see, is there any, can you tell the difference? And I'd be pretty kind of convinced that I probably wouldn't be able to tell the difference, because that they will have paid that attention to detail in the beer process. Because what's the point in putting your name and putting a name of one of your kind of core or special beers, the beers that you brew constantly and that you're known for them to be a poor version of that?
I think the one thing that they do like well above all else is that if you want a beer that is just beer, they've got it. They've got, like you said, like your $5 shake. They've got like your Cali Pale for your pale ale and all the rest of it. If you want one that might taste of lemons particularly, or you want something that's got a bit more peaches to it, or if you want a rhubarb and custard, like you could literally go there with any range of friends that have all kinds of different tastes, and you would find something, alcoholic or not, that they would get on board with. And like you said, because they do it all the way through the year as well, it's not just we can only go there in January when they do the non-alcoholic stuff, because they seem to be doing it like constantly now. So I think whilst the range and the variation is definitely their strong point, I think sometimes they do need to just do a few more just beers. Personally, for me, This is from the guy who's currently sat drinking a tiny rebel beer called Fruit Machine Dream, which is a triple fruited pastry tart sour. So, doesn't exactly taste like your standard beer.
Oh, you pastry tart, you.
Yeah, I've been called worse. So, but again, very nice. Like it is exactly what it says on the can. So I cannot grumble at that. It's just they've got the tropical IPA down to an art. I'd be interested to see, like, just for them to do just what they would class as a standard IPA without the bells and whistles, just to do a solid beer.
Yeah, because you've got like you say, you've got the Cali IPA, and you've got the Vermont IPA. That's and they've got like little subtle kind of things. But yeah, it'd be nice to see them just brew a normal. Like, it sounds daft saying brew a normal beer, or brew a standard IPA with no kind of, like you said, no tricks, no gadgets, no kind of like. I think they'd smash it out of the park, and this is the thing. You kind of like, you just know that it would be a well done kind of version of it. But it's this kind of
their mission, like the bigger they've got, seems to be to venture more towards the weird and wonderful. And like even on like the can I've got in front of me, on the back of the can it says, "We have one rule: never just make vanilla ice cream." So the chances of them doing a standard probably slim to none. And the one that I would probably judge that on the most was that Screwface beer that we had when we were actually in Newport over the summer. That, I mean, damn, was a damn fine bit. Like, such a nice beer. If you don't like sour things, never touch it. Never ever touch it. It was probably as lemony as eating an actual lemon. Like, it was just unreal for the level of sourness. But I knew what I was getting into when we ordered it. So much so that we ended up having multiple of the same variety, didn't we? So
yeah. So this was going to be the next thing I was going to kind of talk about. Was like, I kind of mentioned like obviously the core range, and then obviously either seasonal or kind of one-off kind of things, and kind of Tiny Rebel seem to save that for their kind of birthday boxes. That obviously come out once a year. You know, they're not the Queen. So the birthday boxes. So they've brought out this year's the 9th birthday box, birthday box. And I mean, I've not sampled it just yet. But obviously the 8th birthday was a kind of interesting one where you could mix the beers to make different flavours. And then the year before that was, but they're all collab kind of ones. Yeah, I've mentioned like the Screwface from the 8th birthday. What was it? Was Screwface 8th birthday or 7th birthday?
It was 8th. It was last year's. Yeah, because I was trying to think when you talked about it. Because I had the box set of the 7 that I'd purchased from Atom, like my local craft brewers. They got them in, and it wasn't just like, here you go, here's like 7 beers in a box, 8 beers in a box, whatever it was at the time. It was like this thing where like you pulled the tab on it and the box just kind of unfolded, and like each beer had its like separate compartment, and then there was like a nice glass with it. It's not the glass that I have now, but it's like one of the sort of the tumble style. But it had like when the box opened up, it had like the art. You know, the one thing about Tiny Rebel that we've not mentioned yet is that the very distinct artwork on all of the cans, and they've got the logo of like the bear with a little bit rough around the edges, but kind of like trendy at the same time. That's kind of like, it seems to be like their entire mantra. It seems to be a bit rough around the edges, but they're bang on with where they go. But this box opened up and it was completely full of the artwork, but none of it was in colour. And tucked away inside the glass was a set of colouring crayons, so like you could colour in the box and stuff as well. So it wasn't just the idea of, here's our birthday, let's sell as much beer as we can, here's your beer. It was like kind of like the activity pack and like joining in with like the whole kind of like the birthday stuff, and there's like a little bit with like where's Wally of like where's the bear on the box and like things like that. So it's like Andy was saying about the extra touches and going that little bit further. It makes it's more, it is the experience rather than just here's a beer.
Yeah, here's some special beers that we brewed for our birthday, and you can and I think what does make it special, even if they did just release the beers, it would be kind of cool. It would be cool anyway because they only do collabs for the birthday. And I think that's quite kind of brings it back to that kind of quite cool kind of nature of it.
Yeah.
Right. Kind of. Let's discuss the continual kind of re-brewing and putting different stuff in Stay Puft.
There's been some absolute delights and some absolute monstrosities amongst this.
Yeah.
I mean, the one that I would always bring to mind, which when I first we got that box set and it had 4 different flavours in, and it was the one that was the was it Canadian maple and bacon?
Yes.
I was like, oh man, I can see where the maple would come in, because it's a porter or whatever. It's going to be nice. Just bring that sort of sweetness to it. But then the fact that they mentioned bacon, I was like, oh my god, this is either going to be like, there we go. It was classed as waffle and candied bacon, I believe. But yeah, it was going to be the best thing or the worst thing, and it was actually very nicely surprising. Very much enjoyed that, and absolutely did not expect to. So yeah, that was kind of the most surprising, but in a good way, version that they've done for me.
Yeah, I think it kind of gets a bit weird at times, and it kind of pushes the boundaries. I mean, the one thing that I think the thing that will be consistent with it is that it definitely tastes what they say it's going to taste like. So you kind of go in with your eyes open. I've been having the raspberry ripple one and the chocolate mint one. The raspberry ripple one, I probably could do with a little bit more raspberry to it. The chocolate mint one is kind of probably fine for my kind of palate. I don't want it tasting like they've just whacked a load of toothpaste in there. It's already got the chocolatey taste from the stout.
You've seen what happens as well if they put actual mints into slightly fizzy liquids, so they probably stay away from that.
Right, so the last thing to talk about with Tiny Rebel, and kind of we talked about kind of when we discussed this before. If you haven't got one from Tiny Rebel, it's okay. But a rebrew, what if you could pick any kind of Tiny Rebel beer that they've brewed, or like I said, or any kind of other thing? What would you like them to rebrew in the future?
Well,
so I have actually got one. I dove back through my check-ins on Untapped and found that there was a collab that Tiny Rebel had done with Neon Raptor a couple of years ago for a tropical sorbet IPA, which at the time I gave 4.5 stars to, so it must have been fairly decent.
On my piece of paper, right there.
Not count that. You don't have to show them the answer to make sure.
I was yes. When I saw that, I was like, "Yep, get in." Okay, Andy,
for me, I think obviously I've spent quite some time talking about the fact that I feel very spoilt by Tiny Rebel in the fact that they don't just do one or a couple. They're, as far as I'm aware, we're up to these 4 non-alcoholic ones. But for me, it'd be interesting to see how the non-alcoholic stuff does for them, and whether they would then consider looking at how you're saying they've got not necessarily a core range but a huge range. It's things like the Stay Puft Marshmallow, like that. Even as a non-drinker, I'm aware of its existence. It's absolutely everywhere. You step out the front door and you fall over a can of it, sort of thing. I would personally like to see if they'd maybe take something like that and go, well, let's do even if it was like a limited run or a test run, or just give it a whirl to see some of their more common sort of better known ones, whether they'd give it a non-alcoholic run and see what that does. Obviously, that's a very selfish thing from my perspective, but
well, no, I think that's right though. When we've kind of gone over it, I think trying to get the non-alcoholic, if they're able to do it, and a brewery their size can do it, then it must be able to do. I went and found you another one just in case you didn't have one. For I think it was for the 7th birthday one, possibly. There was Tiny Rebel did a collab with Big Drop Brewery, which is a 0.5%, not so imperial mocha vanilla shot stout. I thought that one sounded right up your street there.
Because the Big Drop, they are another one that I thoroughly enjoy their work. They're another one that have a good run of non-alcoholic range, and they are also delightful.
There you go then, Mr. Woodmansey.
Mine. Go on, Paul.
Well, I was just going to say with the non-alcoholic stuff from Tiny Rebel, it'd be interesting to know how they actually brew it. Because I think there's two different ways that you can do it. You can either brew it so that it never has alcohol in it, or you can just brew it like a normal beer and then actually remove the alcohol to make it alcohol-free or reduced alcohol, whatever you're actually selling the beer as. So I'd imagine that Tiny Rebel will probably do it the second way, in which they brew a normal batch and then just remove the alcohol from it.
It's funny because they started producing gin as well, so I wonder if that's part of the process. So the gin's coming from that, and then whatever's left over becomes the non-alcoholic kind of. I like that one. The artwork's fantastic.
A little aside from the artwork, the artist who designed it is a lady from Canada, and she's also had her artwork featured in Marvel stuff. So she's had some stuff featured in like Jessica Jones. So Tiny Rebel's small claim to fame, other than the brewing, is that they are intrinsically linked to the Marvel universe by way of artwork.
Stu, your
mine would be if you've had any of their beers, you have to cast your mind back. It's about 2.5 years now. For me, what was a very enjoyable evening up in the land of Newcastle, and it was when we managed to sample one of theirs at the craft beer calling the first time we went, and it was aptly named for the end of an evening beer. But did you die? It was. Did you die? Exactly. So it sounds like it's going to be like a game over kind of a beer. Absolutely wasn't. Like it's 6%, so it is up there. Not like top of the shop or anything, but it ticked all of the boxes that I like. I love a thick hazy beer that's not that you have to necessarily chew, but it's got a good bit of mouthfeel to it. And this was up there. It again something that I picked out from, as Paul did, from the old Untapped check-ins. Got a 4 out of 5 on the night. But yeah, it's a good bit of stone fruit to it, good bit of dankness to it, and I don't think I've ever seen him do it since. So I'd be interested to see him revisit that one.
Excellent. Like the two, I wrote 3 down. Paul got the Tiny Rebel and the Neon Rat with Neon Rat collab for the Tropical Sherbet Stout. That was great. We mentioned Screwface. Just to have that again would just be, only even just a third, just to kind of have that kind of thing. But again, I pulled it up on Untapped, and it's the Cherry Bomb, the Cherry Sour that I had in Hull, kind of not last November, the November before. And it had that sour finish, but it tastes. And I've always had a kind of joke about when I taste a beer, quite like it when they taste like a sweet, or like something that I enjoy, kind of like that kind of thing. I like sweets, and if my beer tastes like a sweet as well, I quite enjoy that as well. And these taste like the hard cherry sweets that you can, and it was just so drinkable and so. But I had that like nice kind of sour kind of finish to it that kind of kept you on your toes, but also kind of had that lovely kind of sweet cherry kind of finish to it. So if they produce that one again, that'll be much appreciated. Right then, so that brings kind of Tiny Rebel, the kind of our kind of discussion about Tiny Rebel, to a close. Right, so right, so what we've got is, as a kind of little kind of competition, what is legendary is my stash of beers in the fridge in the garage. It's kept in date order. Sometimes I'm well ahead of the date, sometimes I am perilously close to them being out of date. But I always work very hard to make sure I get back on track. So what I've done is kind of think we've got a bit of a count game of Bruce's Price is Right, but Matt's ABV is right. I will give you. I'll start you off. We'll start with. I'll give you the name of the brewery, the name of the beer, and what kind of beer it is to start with. And then if we're finding it too easy, I'll start reducing the amount of information down. All right. So the first beer in my fridge. The next beer up in my fridge is by a brewery called Lost and Grounded, which is a Bristol-based brewery, and it's called TV Party, and it is a Goes. So, any guesses to the ABV?
I'll go straight in at 4.2.
4.2.
See, I'd have gone higher. So I'd have guessed that maybe like a 5 point. I was going to say 5.5 personally.
Okay.
I was going to go real high. I was just going 6 straight out of the gate.
6. So it is. What did you say, Paul? 5.5. All right.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Woodmansey gets it. It's a 4.8. All right. Okay, next one. So the next one in my in the fridge is Siren. So that's based in Reading, I think. We kind of discussed a while back when we were kind of planning a visit.
We did discuss it. We just quite for very different reasons.
Reading via Malton. This one says Siren Brewery, White Tips, White Session IPA. Is that higher or lower than the 4.8?
I'm going higher.
Okay.
Yeah, higher.
Yeah.
My feet cut out just after you said White Tips, so I didn't really actually hear what the rest of it was that you said.
A little smoke about White Tips, and then sat there waiting for a bit. A White Session IPA.
And our base, when our starting up was 4.8.
Yeah.
Higher.
You're all wrong. What? 4.5.
We've been done by the date ordering system.
Right, next one. Anspach and Hobday. Genuinely do not know where this beer's come from. You know, when you look in the... Generally, I'll show you the cans. I'll take a picture of the cans and we can put them. I'll put them up on the. I'll send them through to be put up on the Twitters and the Instagrams and all that kind of thing. So this is Anspach and Hobday, a brewery in London. This is called the Sour Dry Hop. It was very kind of the can was very kind of. It would have been up Paul James's street. Paul. It was very kind of Victorian kind of people on bikes and all that kind of thing. It was so a sour dry.
Highly pretentious.
It's got to be higher. It's got to be higher.
See? Yeah, I'd say instantly as soon as you start dry hopping, that drives it up for me. So higher.
Also, at this point in time, can it get much lower? So
there's been non-alcoholic.
Well, I mean, you're getting into my territory here.
Also,
there's a couple of rogue low. There's a couple of low, really low ABVs in my fridge somewhere, ready to jump out.
Hope I don't ruin it, like Matt. But you haven't got any Atom stuff in there, have you? On the list.
Me. Oh no, not now. No. No.
Right, I was going to say because obviously I've got this chilling out.
Excellent. Is that another Radler? Is that?
Is that like the nanobot or whatever it's called?
Ah. Right. So are we all going higher with that one then?
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Yes. You're all right. 4.9. So not massively.
Wow. So not much higher then.
I felt really really stingy as I was going through these, but these genuinely are the next 5 in the fridge. And I'm like 4.8, 4.5, 4.9. Right. So 4th one. So this is Basqueland. So as you perhaps guessed, again, nice and close to Molten in Barcelona.
Another brewery we should visit because it seems pretty close. Yeah, obviously.
Oh yeah. This one's called Squishy, and it's a blueberry sour. So your last one was 4.9.
I don't know if I've tried this one.
Going lower.
I'll go slightly higher. I reckon it's creeping into the 5s.
I want to say the same, but I think I'm going to say lower.
Mr. Williams gets it on a technicality, but it's a 6.6, so I'm kind of like half a point.
Jesus.
Right, last one. Back to Reading via Molten. A tribe called Zest. This is one purely bought on the name of the beer, as sometimes these things go. It's a papaya and lime goes. So, Siren.
So just double fruited, not triple fruited.
A tribe called Zest, papaya and lime goes. So the last one was 6.6. Is this one higher or lower?
Has to be lower.
Yeah, lower.
Lower. Yeah, it's a 4.2. Oh, that's that one's there. 4.2. I think, yeah, so there you go. The first venture through.
I love it.
I mean, let's be honest, we can tally up the points, but the real winner is the fact that it's you, because you have all of those beers in your fridge, so...
It's going to get more challenging, though, because I was looking through and they're like, there's a load of Brew York beers, and we could have a Brew York special, kind of thing, but then you guys could probably remember some of them.
Well, we can we wait until...
Oh, we got some of them!
After I get my next monthly box from them.
I mean... You know what the stash is like, though. It's not going to be in the monthly. It's not going to be in the monthly box.
It maybe would have been like 5 months ago.
Yeah. Right. And so, as we come to a close, I thought the last kind of thing we could do is any other beerness. Generally, have you got anything else you'd like to talk about? Or any beers that you're looking forward to?
I have a burning
chomping at the bit.
Absolutely, and I want to start by referring everybody back to everything that I said about Rebel, everything I said about Tiny Rebel. I want that well and truly in people's minds before I start saying what I'm about to say. I love them as a company, I love them as a brewery, and I love their beers. They all taste amazing. The rhubarb and custard, non-alcoholic. It's great. It tastes amazing. It looks interesting when you pour it. It's like, I mean, you're a bit like, what colour is that supposed to be, sort of thing. It tastes beautiful. I would like someone to explain to me, though, why, if in this room I took into, let's say at 9 o'clock on an evening, I took into a lovely rhubarb and custard, non-alcoholic. Why is it that 12 hours later I'd be sitting in the same room going, can anybody smell rhubarb and custard? It's the only beer I've ever experienced it with. I still, at this point in time, having drunk quite a few of them, cannot explain it at all. But it's like the smell lingers for a while. It's bizarre because
they're just overloading it with with flavour and stench.
Because it's often at times, because, non-alcoholic, I could drink it for breakfast if I wanted to. I could drink it during a working day if I wanted to. But I can drink it during the week if I want to. So when I'm like sat working and I'm like, what's that? Is that rhubarb and custard? And then all I can hear is so that was my any other business.
It's their way of marketing it to drive the sales, because you sat there and you say 6 hours later, and you're like, oh man, I really fancy another non-alcoholic rhubarb and custard beer, and you just go through.
It's weird because the number of times I've found myself on the Tiny Rebel website not long after that. It's
Pavlovian, that's it. There's some kind of.
I must place an order.
Oh no, I got my stash. Oh, I'm out. I need to order multiple rhubarb and custards. Anything else? No. Mr. Williams? No. The only thing I've got is
nothing for me, Chief.
I've got Cloudwater and the Vale Brewing Company from Richmond have done their annual Chubbles. But this year, because it's Cloudwater's 6th birthday, they've gone double Chubble. So they've got Chubble 2 and Chubble 3. One is a double IPA, one is a triple IPA. And I may or may not have ordered those today. They will be thick, they'll be damp, and they'll be high on the ABV.
They are notoriously difficult to get hold of as well, from what I remember. So congratulations on getting that through the through the order.
I spotted them on Instagram, and I was like, right, yes, I should order those right now. So yeah, right then. Well, on that note, thank you, gents. Thank you all for watching the first event of Pursuit of Hoppiness. I hope you find your hoppiness at the bottom of a glass. See you in a month's time. Remember, subscribe, like. There might be kind of Twitter polls up on the Cookie Cast for breweries that you'd like us to talk about, beers that you'd like us to discuss, etc., etc. So, yeah. Thank you very much, gents.
Thank you. So there you go. What do you think to the brand new podcast? Any good? What do you think? Well, let us know which brewery we should be hitting up next. You can do that by dropping a comment on the YouTube video while you're clicking that cheeky little subscribe button. You can also subscribe to audio by going to SoundCloud or iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. Everybody jump over to thecookiecast.com. Check us out over there. There's social media links, email links, and you can get in touch with us. So that's it for a new podcast. And for now, I'm going to say bye, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.